as she said, and I'm here today to introduce myself, as I'm doing now, but also introduce you to some of the work that I've been up to. Someone thought that would be a good idea. I don't know. I'm just here because it seemed like a good thing to do on a Tuesday afternoon. I have been working as an artist for many years and just trying my hand out at what I call puppetry. But I don't do the normal kind of puppetry that might have come to you all's head when you heard the puppet guy was coming. I don't know if anyone thought of, hey everybody, there's going to be a puppet show. I don't do any of that. I'm not really into that. I don't really, I think, talking down to kids is not really something I'm into, and I sort of try to meet them where they're at. And I like to do art for all ages, and I'm not really specifically for kids at all. So puppetry, though, if you look at other parts of the world, is very much reflects that. It's not something that has always just been like it is here in the US, just for kids. It's something that the whole community gathers to sort of watch. So you can imagine gathering around the fire, and you're going to have someone doing shadow puppetry, say, and as far back as 2000 or 4000 BC in China. And all over the world, if you think about it, there's some sort of puppetry tradition. And if you include mask making in that, then definitely every culture in the world has some sort of tradition where they cover the face, from ancient shamanic practices straight all the way through to the Greek classics, to the Japanese mask, the No masks they're called, No theater. All around the world, any country you could name has some sort of mask or puppetry. So I'm just carrying on a tradition that I got introduced to about when I was 19, so how many years ago? This math gets harder and harder. 27 years ago, I think is what she said. So I'm going off what she said. And I got exposed to Bread and Puppet Theater. Has anyone ever heard of Bread and Puppet? It's a giant puppet company out of Vermont that's been around for over 50 years. And I saw that when I was 19. And being someone who had practiced both fine art and drama and dance and music as a kid in the school that I went to, when I found that, it was literally just like a giant light bulb / bell ringing in my ear saying, this is your thing, I found my thing. And so I've been doing that ever since, and I'm 47 now, and so still at it, and I guess there's no plan B, so this is me until the very, until I've fallen a hole in the ground. So this is, I want to share with you some of the things I do. I guess you have seen up here, there's some of the characters that I brought along just to, I guess, as a, right up close and personal example. This is a sort of a green ram. And one person can do this. They just sort of hop under here, and then they start. Kind of crazy. It's just cardboard and paper mache, but it doesn't take much to just sort of bring it to life. And that's sort of what one of the small example of what we do in our productions. So we make these big, giant productions that use characters like this, and other ones that are much, much bigger, which I'll show you in a bit. And we do them for thousands of people. I think last year we had about 20,000 people that came to our shows in the summer. They happen in Chapel Hill and at the Museum of Art in Raleigh. If you've ever been to the Forest Theater in Chapel Hill, anyone? There's an amphitheater. All right. You've come to see our shows?
Yes. Not the film there.
Okay. Well, also the Museum of Art has a wonderful outdoor venue that we do our shows at every year. And let's see, I'll put this crazy leafy ram down. Yeah, so making all kinds of animals. This is a little, excuse me, screech owl. So this was actually our small owl, and I'll show you the picture of that in a bit. There's we had a whole stage full of giant owls, including a barred and a great horned and a snowy owl, and this was the little tiny one, even though it's quite large. This is another one that just, you stick your head into this craziness right here, which is, you know, it's just such a big mask that it took a lot of foam. You know. Anyway, it has wings and everything that go with it, but I didn't bring those along. Sorry about that. I have to stay away from that speaker. Yes, yes it does. You can't see very well. But you can see well enough to do a performance if you're sort of get used to it, you know. But yeah, we do our productions in the summer, August and September, so that's, I don't know, that's some kind of crazy that I can't even begin to describe. We do that every year. Spend August and September outside in sometimes costumes that are made with fur and other things. I don't know, but we do it, and we suffer for our art, you know.
What are they made of?
They are made of paper mache. So pick up this little bunny here. So we make them over an armature. So we build an armature on a stand, and we'll tape sort of woven bags, you know, like coffee comes in or rice grain sacks, and tape it into a structure, and then we'll build that up with newspaper, and then we'll put clay onto that and build a form, and then we'll put plastic onto that, and then when the plastic is on there nice and tight, right to the shapes that we've sculpted with the clay, then we paper mache like 6 layers of brown paper bags, you know, the sort of thicker brown paper, not newspaper. Newspaper, we would be at this forever. So this, these brown paper bags end up being quite strong. I mean, I can wump on this thing, and it's basically like wood now that it's, now granted, if you jumped up and down on it, or sat on it really hard, and you know, it would probably go away and be crushed. But for what the purposes that we use it for, handing it out at parades. So I'll hand this out to some kid at a parade, and he'll just, or she'll stuff it on their head and just bounce down. And I'll just be playing the drums, and there'll be giant puppets, and you know, just it's sort of create you know, big spectacles and big celebratory sort of events is part of what I do. Pageantry and creating spectacle. You guys can pass this around if you want. You can feel the weight of it if you want, and you get a chance to see it up close. So in general, I would just say that Paperhand has been around for 20 years, and I started it, and with another man who I'm going to introduce you to virtually here, named Jan, and he and I still work together to this day. And what we do are these big shows that I was talking about, the big giant pageants where thousands and thousands of people come to see the show. And we do commissions, we do parades, we do residencies where we teach. We do shows in schools where I go and I bring masks like this and I put them on for auditoriums full of screaming children. And I mean a wall of screaming. Not like terror screaming, but delighted, crazy screaming. And the teachers, you know, have this sort of look like, oh my God, I don't think I can take this. Because every character that I put on, I mean, just imagine I put on some old lady. You know, this is my old wrinkly lady. And you know, she's, you know, I put this on and I come out and the kids are just like screaming. I don't know why. Not from terror, I don't think. Or sometimes I'll put on one like this. pretty fun. It's a fun little career that I've sort of picked out for myself here. I was lucky enough to go to this school for creative performing arts, and I was exposed to the arts, and something about that really resonated with my character, with who I am. I just wanted to be a jack of all trades, so I decided to just, when I found puppetry, it was really that epiphany moment for that reason, because I get to design and write and draw and sculpt, and then I get to paint and then dance and do theater and all to live music. So all of the art forms kind of coalesce for me in this art form, and I just felt, I guess like really happy when I found it. I was like, yay! And here I am to this day. So I'm going to give a little bit of our sort of trajectory from our start, our humble beginnings as making little cardboard flowers, and we still do the same today, but this is like where Jan and I sort of meet. Like he was he made a lot of wood cuts, so this is a giant piece of masonite that was carved with wood chisels, and then you use your brayer and you roll it out and then you print it onto cloth. And then we paint it with watered down house paints. And this is me making sort of like living trees, because we're both big nature enthusiasts, and we just love the earth. I don't know, what can I say? It's just such an amazing place, and it's miraculous. So we tend to continue to follow that narrative through the work that we do right up till today. It's an important story. So this is Jan, Mr. Smiley here, in our studio in Saxophal Hall. And he and I sit around a lot and we draw. And we have got sketchbooks full of drawings where we collaborate really closely. So we write the shows together. This is our 19th annual coming up this summer. So we've been at it a while, and we'll reach across the table and scribble on each other's drawing pad, and then, or trade back and forth even sometimes. So we really collaborate in an unusual way, you could say. It's not very common, but it's been a great thing, and he's a dear friend. So in our humble beginnings, we made more traditional puppet shows. We had smaller puppets. We did the story of, excuse me, The Water of Life. I don't know if any of you have heard that story. But we would do it in front of kids, and there's Jan playing the accordion, and I'm backstage doing puppets. And we had a little curtain that fell, and it was very, again, more like a traditional when you think of a puppet show inside of a little box. Excuse my coughing. There was one of those masks that had some dust or something. So this was one of our early shows called The Crawdad's Conundrum. And the Crawdad had a conundrum because humans were messing everything up. And so he had to sort of help teach the humans a better way. And so as we were doing these puppet shows, as you can see, there was a lot of excitement that was starting to be generated through the community. This kid, I hope he's okay. He was very excited. And what I continue to love to this day about what we do is that excitement gets generated through all the ages that I meet. And even if it's just a little spark of inspiration, but people tend to love to very, I guess, easily hand over their suspension of disbelief and believe that something is alive. I don't know if there was even a glimmer when the ram started going around of it's kind of coming to life. This is getting excuse me, gosh. And so eliciting that response from people became just for me a passion. I love just sort of engaging people with magical, sort of uncommon realities. And so I continued to do that. And we started making bigger things, including this sort of iconic green man, which we used for many years. And we started doing big parades, and there was a former version of me playing drums and blowing a whistle. We were making cardboard and paper mache heads with kids, and then having them be in the parades as well. So we would help them along. So these are more kid-made. And then there's Jan walking around on stilts in Bynum.
Oh, wow.
Bynum is another mill town just downriver. our parades got bigger and bigger. We both walk on stilts and carry these things, and I'm a drummer, so I play drums for the parade, and everyone just marches along and dances down the street. And just more and more parades, and literally just going to places and stuffing cardboard birds on people's heads and saying, "Let's go!" And people would do it. And one of the things I love the most is when there was someone who was just like, "I don't really do these random experiences. I got a schedule here. I'm a busy person." And then I would convince them, "Well, you should just try it out. Just join us. Here, carry this hand or carry the head of this sun." And by the end, it was the people who were the biggest doubters who would literally have their tie around their head and their hair's all messed up, and they're just like, "Oh, that was so great," and they're just laughing. They have tears, and I would just be like, "Ha ha." So here's an early dragon, and some of our, and those are snake gourds. I don't know if you guys have ever seen snake gourds as the horns. Very tiny things. And then we started getting better and better at our craft, and so this is us sort of still early on, maybe 15 years ago. This is an early moon, and this is sort of some of the narratives we started doing. We had some stilt walkers that we, myself and others, and we made these wings and made these moths. And the moths were drawn to the moon in sort of natural cycle of life. But then the fire came, this sort of fire goddess, you could say, and the moths were drawn to the fire. And as they got closer to the fire, they realized that, whoa, look out, when it turned around, it was actually, they got too close to the flame. So it was just sort of some basic stuff, you get to dance too close to the flame and you might get burned. But that was the sort of pageantry narratives that we were telling in our early days. And then, sometimes we would make pink cowboys, as one does. Giant pink cowboys with oversized boots. And here's another example of our early narratives. Get ready for this. So here's all these happy hogs, just coming along to eat from the trough of patriotism, because yum, yum, yum. Everybody loves it. Just gobble up some patriotism. It's like, woohoo! And then the cowboy says, "Hey, get on the freedom bus. We got freedom fries. We got freedom everything. Just come on now and get on the bus." And the hogs all jump on the bus. But watch out. The bus turned around. It was a trick. The whole thing was a trick. And then the cowboy's a butcher. And all of a sudden, look at this face here. Now, how did this end? We didn't actually chop up the pigs. That would have been too far. We had a stage freeze, and the pigs sort of snuck around the back and took the cleaver from him and then gave him a little kick in the behind, and the cowboy had to run off, and the pigs just chased him off. I don't know, that was our best for that time period. We didn't necessarily have all the answers, we just had a lot of questions. We still do, many questions. So that was, and then we always kept coming back to our, as I said, our love of the earth and our passion for the natural world. And so in this one, this was a very early show, but we went for it and tried to create this giant Mother Earth reclining figure. You see that there? The whole backdrop, and it's probably about 50 feet wide. And each of the pieces is individual. So it kind of moved on as giant tectonic plates. And then the tectonic plates sort of crunched together and stacked up and fit together and ended up with this giant reclining figure of the earth. Still to this day, I don't know how he pulled it off. Making more giant puppets, and then we made sort of representations of the seasons. This is summer, this is wheat, this is winter. There were some different aspects of spring, sunflowers. And then, again, when I talk about pageantry, sort of epic scale, 50-foot wide puppets that are, these are 25 feet tall. These are the stars This is the sun, of course, I hope you recognize, with all the different parts of the sky and the earth. And this is the moon here, on stilts, sort of orbiting around the earth, which is here in the background. And then people are over here also carrying some lanterns that we made, early sort of star lanterns. And yeah, so once we went big in that way, on this epic scale, we just decided that was a place that was really inspiring people and eliciting really sort of awe-struck experiences. People were just like, wow, it's so big and so awesome. And so we just kept going with that, and we've been continuing to this day to make all sorts of giant things. So here's more excitement was being generated. So again, we're very encourageable, so we just got encouraged. Is that the right person? Again, we believe that puppets are an art form that is really of and for and by the people. So people, when we bring these heads out to parades, we literally just hand out our puppets to folks that seem interested and anyone who's open to just engaging. And we hand them out and they join us in the parade. There's me with some hands, paper hands. So then we did another show that sort of addressed the elements. This is water. And this is, we broke the elements down a little bit into plant and stone. And this is smoke, because there was a time when the fire and the water kind of came together and smoke was born, or steam or smoke. And then we kept going with making, we call these the forgotten gods of simplicity. Just simple, big, white puppets that fill the stage. This is a beautiful theater that we go to every year called the Forest Theater. If you have never been, you should check it out. It's quite a lovely space to be in. And we do our shows there every summer.
Where is it?
It's on the Chapel Hill, it's on the UNC campus, right across the street, essentially from Playmakers, if you've ever been to Playmakers. So it's kind of catty corner, or kitty corner, or whatever they call it, across the road. And then it's just basically a hollow in the forest that's filled with a stone seating that goes all the way, and it seats about 1,000. And we tend to fill it up a lot in the summer, which is still a phenomenon in my opinion. Here's a little bit of our process. So again, like I said, we sculpt the face out of different things, bags and tarps and things, and we tape it into a shape. And then we start adding newspaper and tape and more tape. We use a lot of rolls of masking tape and shape the face to the best of our ability. And then we add on top of that. And that's sort of to displace the clay. So we don't have to have a mountain of clay. We just have to have enough to cover and sculpt the details. So this is the face coming into being with the clay. And we use the same clay over and over again year after year. We just bust it up with hammers and the bone dry, and we put it back into water and rehydrate it. So then plastic goes on over that, and then the paper mache starts to go on. In the paper mache, we just use cornstarch and water, and then we boil the water and pour the cornstarch mix in. You end up with this goopy stuff. Kind of, cornstarch is what makes gravy and other things have that thick, which I can't eat any of that stuff anymore. After I've seen the things that cornstarch can do. I don't go there. But anyway, we put like maybe 6, 7 layers of the cornstarch on the brown paper bags, and keep adding those layers until you get the face done. And then the face dries. This is it, sort of partly dry. And then this is it when it's off the mold and it's been painted. It's been just peeled up off the mold and supported some from the back with some wood. And then we can come in and paint it. And this is the face of a river, and the river is a long, 60 feet long. So someone carries the head like this and basically just meanders, and the 10 people who are inside carrying the spine just run around and they follow the person in the head, and it ends up doing a really nice sort of meander like a river should. And we were able to take that on the Forest Theater stage, and because the spine was really flexible, really weave it around and create a nice flowing river on the stage. But again, it takes lots of people and lots of time. To sew the body alone was just this epic thing of just like heaping it through the machine. I don't know if any of you have ever sewn, I'm sure you have, but it took a while. Here's some of the shiny faces that I get to work with, some of our puppeteers from over the years at one particular show. Just everybody's so lovely. So here again, I like sort of just giving you more ideas of like what we like to speak about. And so here's one of our, again, our early stories where it's all told without words. But we had this giant beast that was introduced, kind of like it sort of unfurled because it was all tucked in and looked just like a big leafy green pile. And the hands come out and then the head unfolds. And it just was this beast of the wild, we called it, like living in a wild space with these trees that are sort of living trees. And along comes the hero. And the hero is in big quotation marks for me because I like to call into question what we're actually saying when we say the hero. Who was he, saving, or who was he protecting? The beast was just living his life, or her life, raising its babies, who knows? But along comes this hero with his mighty sword. I don't know if you guys have probably heard this story, but it happens over and over again in human history. We tend to basically demonify the natural world as the other and the bad and the scary, and sort of glorify the human and the sort of like our mighty weaponry. And so anyway, the beast is slain by the hero. And when the beast dies, it collapses and the audience boos and goes crazy because no one wanted to see that. And then on top of the beast, buildings are built. And in come the sea of humanity, we called it. Just these big gray washes of population, people. And then there's a part here that is not depicted where that's sort of like taking over of the wild space led to this sort of manifestation of our human greed and our sort of progress desire. And it looked like a giant blob that was like an undulating big black growing that had like a lamprey kind of mouth on it. You guys know what a lamprey is? It has like those circular teeth. Anyway, so things were being fed into there. And it was eating the trees, and it ate the buildings, and then it was just getting out of control and growing bigger and bigger until out of it, at the very end, it sort of starts belching, and then out of it comes this big Mother Earth kind of goddess that was like, to me, represented the sort of the fact that no matter how far we go, that nature always bats last, I guess you could say, if you've ever seen that bumper sticker, but that nature will prevail in the end, even if it means that humans aren't here. So this was the sort of goddess coming back, or the nature coming back, and she reaches down and touches the beast, and the beast is resurrected. And I wasn't expecting this at all, but I wasn't expecting how much tears people had in the audience when the beast came back to life. And I also wasn't expecting how much all the children, there was probably 50 kids who had gathered down in the front, and all of their hands just immediately shot out when the beast sort of stepped down towards the audience, and their hands all shot out in unison. And to me that was just a very powerful moment. There was even some young girls who were from India who were walking down towards the beast like this, and it was, I would dip the beast down and people would reach out and touch its face, and there was a moment of just pure connection and sort of magical reality happening there that deeply inspires me as an artist to keep going and to keep working, because it was just something really pure about it. Like, we just wanted to connect with nature, connect with the wild, and people were connecting with each other. And I guess I sort of saw that as my as a moment that was really clarifying for me in my journey as an artist. And there's me taking it through the audience. I guess in a different phase when my beard was still red. Jeez, it happens, doesn't it? So we also experimented with a lot of ways to wear masks and how to be dancers. And so we were experimenting with a lot of morphable, changeable ways of being in a mask. We put the mask on the back of our heads during the performance. So this is us laying on our backs with our head tucked up. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's pretty disorienting. But we also, put this mask was made so that it could shift around and you could put it on the top of your head, so we became these sort of bear-like, or like walking on all fours. And then we also used the mask sort of up high and became these elongated creatures. And then we were just looking at the morphability of forms and finding the fascination in that. And then I got married, I guess. Yeah, so there I am getting married, okay. She's the reason why I moved to North Carolina, so you have her to thank for that. It's my wife, Leah. And at my wedding, some puppets showed up that I was not expecting. So this is me with a red beard again. And this is some puppets that my friend Jan made, and Jan is the one I introduced you to earlier. And he just decided he was going to puppet bomb my wedding, I guess. So this is my wife, and she was a farmer at the time, and so she's out there raking this thick grass in our field. And then along comes me with my little ukulele, playing a little chicken with a red beard playing ukulele. And then so we sort of find each other and hook up. And then this was the spontaneous thing that we had no idea was happening. And then all of a sudden this giant bird flew over the hills. And this was something that Jan made as a gift to our wedding. And so first thing that happened was a bunch of the kids in the front just ran out towards it, these little babies, in the field, just like running towards it. There's some other great pictures of that I don't have here. So this giant crane is still a part of our collection, and we use it actually at a number of different weddings. It's been at least a dozen weddings since this one, because this one happened 2002. And yeah, somehow now we get paid to actually bring puppets to weddings. So if anyone needs any puppets at your children's weddings, we're open to that. It happens a lot, I'm telling you. This is us at the museum with the same bird, and these people were actually like in a very serious, life-threatening situation right now. The wind is blowing really hard on top of a hillside. Not life-threatening, let's take it down a notch. Intense. The wind is just blowing that puppet all over the place, and they look fairly calm. But this guy right here, that's my friend Rob, he's like, oh my God. You can imagine. This is Baba Chuck Davis, who was a dear friend. He just passed away last year. Did anyone here know Baba Chuck? He was the leader of the African American Dance Ensemble for many years. Quite a famous, dynamic guy. And he would lead this beautiful sort of ritual every year at the Festival, River Festival, and sort of blessing the ancestors, and we were always there with puppets, and he loved the puppets. A bunch of characters from years past, some grumpy, some not. This little girl, Zella, she was 7 when she started in our company, and now she's 20 or maybe 21. But she's an incredible stilt walker and performer, and she's just an incredible all-around person. And now that we've been doing it long enough, we've got kids that have grown up, not only in the company, but grown up watching the shows, who were, that is just amazing to me. But, I guess the older you get, the more kids you see that are no longer kids. I'm sure you guys might have experienced a little bit of that. So this is a little section I have on commissions. So we sometimes just have people email us and say, hey, can you make me something that's puppety? And so for this one, the city of Raleigh asked us to build a tree, and we said, well, we'll make a puppet tree. You guys with me? Come on now, she got it. Anyway, we made this puppetry, and
We're a little slow.
all right. Maybe it was the delivery. I'm still working on it. But it's okay. So we're inside this box. down here. This is the subsoil, as you can tell. And there's little channels in here on the different sides. There's 4 sides, and there's little worms and ants and mites crawling around in the subsoil. The ants then pop up in the leaf litter, and they crawl around, and there's little pathways for them to crawl around. And then there's little holes and things for squirrels and owls and little critters that pop out of this tree. And we're all inside there working them with different sticks and hand puppets and just having a ball. It was pretty fun. A little bit hot, maybe. And then this is the entryway to a tunnel. And the tunnel had these roots hanging down. So when kids go through, they just sort of crawled through a bunch of cloth roots hanging down. So it was pretty fun. And we were commissioned to make a giant puppet for the big first night parade that happens every year in downtown. So we made this giant, it's a Mother Earth basically that represents North Carolina. So here's her head and hands being built. The hand, as you can see, we're just taping and sculpting, mashing. Then the clay comes out. We built this over one of those old school satellite dishes. You guys remember when everyone was buying satellite dishes and they were like 10 feet across? Anyway, we got a couple of those donated to us because they became outdated pretty badly. So there's the hand before it gets cut off, and then we have to go along each finger and split it off of the mold because the paper mache kind of traps it in there, if you know what I mean, when the paper mache goes on. So there's the paper mache layers being peeled off, and then they get put back together. So the entire body is a mural, and the mural is painted with flora and fauna from the mountains at her head, all the way down through the Piedmont, and it transitions all the way out to her tail, which is the ocean. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's a long, sort of long body that's stretched out behind her as she rolls down the street. I got a picture here, but these are just some of the different panels that we painted, flora and fauna of North Carolina. There's some pink lady slippers, and one of those green anoles, and Jack in the Pulpit.
It's a catfish.
That's a catfish.
Yeah.
And horsetail. I think that's probably part of the Piedmont, perhaps. Yeah, with the mussels. And then that's part of the mountains with the red squirrel and the great horned owl. And so this is the beginning to be her finishing up, but the dogwood, the cardinal, all the state things we used. The honeybee for the state. We also had the Scotch bonnet on there for the state seashell. We got really dorky about it. We even mixed granite dust, which is the state rock, into the paint, which made all of the paint have like an iridescent, like sort of sparkle to it, which I was just like, oh yeah, that's the money right there. So this is it going down the street in Raleigh, and we had to figure out how to get between the street lamps because we bumped them a few times at first, and that was a little scary. But her body's stretched out behind her, and that's where it takes 50 people to move Rhea down the street.
And what was the celebration for this?
This is First Night, it's called, which is it's basically New Year's Eve. So it's kind of like last night and First Night at the same time, but it's called First Night. This is a sea monkey. I don't know if you guys remember from the back of comic books. There was these characters with 3 little prongs in their head, and there were these things that, like, you get water and you put it on the little things and they come back to life. That anyone? They used to read old comic books. Anyway, whatever. I got commissioned to make one of those, and it ended up in a film. Anybody recognize this lovely lady? She made a lot of art in her life. Thank you. Frida Kahlo. And it kind of looks like her. This is Diego before he got it finished. He was not the prettier one in the family. This is a giant caterpillar that we made as a commission. So this is the framework. We did a bunch of PVC work and things, but there's the head that have these working mandibles. You stick your hands in there and you carry the head and you gobble up things. This is the body going onto it. It's got those big really antenna, but yeah. This is a dragon that was commissioned by the Carolina Ballet. So they did a version of Sleeping Beauty, and they said, we need a dragon. and we said, we're your puppet people. And so we made this dragon, and I wish to this day that I had this dragon back. I love this dragon. But they have it stored in some box, and I'm just like, come on, give me my dragon back. Here it is with the dancers. And this is the woman who played the witch here. So the witch in the story, when the knight is sort of riding to wake up, she sort of turns into a dragon. I don't know if you remember the Disney version. Big dragon sort of forms. And so they tried to just take it up a notch, and I think it worked. I mean, so the dragon also opens its mouth. It has a thing that you can pull, and I rigged it up with these big green door springs, so that when it shuts, it really shuts. It's really kind of a nice little snappy jaw. There it is, just sort of roaring into the night. Nice dragon, right? Anybody else seen a dragon? Anyway, yes.
How much time would it take to create that?
So I would say we spent about a month on it, maybe a month and a half, and it was like, so it was a $5,000 commission, which it was in our earlier days. I would charge more for it now, especially knowing that it was going to go away forever and I would never get to use it again. That's one thing I've had to learn about commissions. You have to like really let go. Like, I just made some awesome thing and now it's gone forever. You know, it's just part of the learning experience. But yeah, it took us about a month and a half.
Are they not using it at all, or just?
They let it rest for like 3 or 4 years, and then they remount Sleeping Beauty. I think since we've made it for them, they've done it twice. You know, it's like a weekend worth of shows. These are some jellyfish at the North Carolina Museum, aquarium, I mean. There's proof that it's at the aquarium, and diver right there. Here's the caterpillar sort of in action, downtown Raleigh. And we make cardboard castles. Just a little niche thing. I mean, I'm a cardboard constructionist cowboy, and I just make things out of cardboard. So anybody who asked me to, so this was an Earth Day thing, and they were like, we need a giant cardboard playhouse for the kids. And I was like, I got you. And I made this 3-room crazy castle with tunnels interconnecting them so the kids could just scramble down the tunnels. And man, these kids had a blast. I mean, if you just take the basic refrigerator box scenario and then amplify it, you know, to like, 10 times, and you have this really fun experience that I'll probably do more of. I've done this at least 3 or 4 times in different ways. Sometimes we built like big paper wasp looking huts that are sort of big, like Smurf hut looking things that with tunnels connecting them. We built all kinds of things. I don't have them all on this slideshow.
Donovan, did it withstand the traffic of the children, and can it be reused, or is it just a one-time thing?
By the time you take it down and then figure out where to store it, then you have problems. So for the Earth Day thing, I mean, the purpose was to make it all recyclable. So we made a lot of cardboard, and we made sure all the cardboard got back into the recyclable dumpster for the cardboard. And that was the best we could do.
Never again, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
What happens if it rains?
Oh, bad things. Very bad. The puppets have the potential to, basically turn back into oatmeal. If they get left out long enough. I mean, some of them, like this wolf here, it's got enough paint on it to protect it for a while. But if ones that are not as protected, like the baby head or this little lady, she only has so much rain she could take before the paper mache would soak it in and it would start to. But I mean, they never ever get left in the rain. But if it starts raining and we're able to get it under cover within a reasonable amount of time, then there's usually not that big of a problem. But we have had some things get destroyed by rain when I didn't have a cover for my truck and I was transporting puppets. It started pouring one of those afternoon rain showers, and I got a truck full of water, and all the puppets were just like, "Gah." I was like, oh my God. I had to fix this because I couldn't run a business on that kind of. So anyway, a couple of mishaps have taught me how to do it better. This is our red wolf, and we actually commissioned. This was commissioned by the Lost Colony, who used it as sort of like greeters. They had some of the native species greeting people as they would show up, with an egret as well. And the forest-legged stiltwalker. This is a tiger mask, I hope you guys can tell. I made this for my wife's brother when I was still trying to impress my wife's family. I don't know if any of you remember that phase, but like, yeah, he's a Clemson fan. I don't know if anyone else in here a Clemson fan. Okay, well, I got introduced to Clemson, what it means to be Clemson, have your blood run orange, and I made this mask for him, and to this day I still get points for making this mask that he sometimes wears to a Clemson game. Anyway, it's pretty hilarious. Those days are over. This is the story of John Henry that we told one year. And I don't know if y'all are familiar, but John Henry was a steel driving man, and he went up against the machine, the newfangled machine, and he wins against the machine, but he dies in the process. So it's almost like he sacrifices himself, and he was the only one strong enough to really go like that. And so it was an interesting story of man's struggle with how we're industrializing the world and automating the world and different things. And we found it to be a powerful and good story. And the puppet just turned out awesome. I just love this guy, and his the puppeteer is right here. His face is here, and he's got his hands inside of giant fists. And the fist actually has a little mechanism that you squeeze, and it when the hammer goes in, and then it's squeezed in place, and then he can let go of that, and the hammer can be removed, so it can be just his fist. And it's in both sides, so because he ends up double hammering at one point with John Henry. So sometimes do tall tales from our own history. This was from studying on like myths from, or not myths, but stories from Central Europe and all around European nations that are based around like a village of fools, like a village of idiots, I guess you could say. You guys have any ever heard this story, these stories, but there's lots of them. Milk and the goat. They would choose a king for the day. It'd be like if you got the bean or the ring and the cake, you would be chosen for the king for a day, and you could do whatever you want. But then there's the next day, and you were in big trouble, and once people realized what you did. Anyway, they were just a funny, it was sort of like comic relief. We built these cardboard houses with working shutters and working doors, and the flower boxes grew flowers in them. It was pretty cute. This is Mara, the king of the demons, who basically was the Buddha's nemesis. And you know the story of the Buddha going into the woods to become enlightened. Mara was the one who was, this is the Buddha puppet here. Very heavy puppet. Luckily, I'm incredibly strong. This is Mara screaming in Buddha's ear, trying to distract him from becoming enlightened. But then the Buddha becomes enlightened anyway, as we know, and this lotus flower opens, and we had a light rigged up in his chest. His heart light sort of started emanating light, and you can see the light there. And then he walked up through the audience, which do I have a picture of that? No. I was telling the story earlier that the first night of dress rehearsals, I physically couldn't lift the Buddha well enough to get it up the 50 stairs at the Forest Theater. So I had to go up the stairs, and like, meanwhile, there's two people on either side of me making the legs go, right? So I have to watch out for them, they have to watch out for me. And the first night of dress rehearsal, I got about halfway up and I couldn't do it. There was no one there. But then over the course of that week, I literally built up the muscle strength needed to get it there. And by the time opening night happened, I felt confident enough that I wouldn't drop it. All my shows are perfectly safe. Don't get the wrong idea. But yeah, that was a wild time. These are just some more puppets from over the years. We made some robots. I love art. There's my old dog Lily, who thought the robots were very interesting when they showed up at our farm. This is one of our little puppeteer's sons who was very inspired by the robots and decided to make his own Halloween robot costume. It was very sweet. That is like one of the cutest pictures. We surprised him at his birthday party with a robot, sort of like, what's the word? Yeah, a robot arrival, a robot intervention. I do lots of work with kids in school, so these are just some pictures of puppets I make with kids and things that they do with me over the course of usually a few days or sometimes a week of 2 hour long sessions. Make trees, monkeys, little lions, Super Mario. I did a lot of work with groups of kids with autism, and these are some of the puppets that they made. This is an anteater, which I thought was awesome. She even has little ants. Presented some interesting challenges because their sensory perception and stuff, they weren't really able to like cover their faces and things like that. There was some things that I had to figure out with that. But it was pretty awesome. They had a great experience and the parents were really thankful. This is them with their masks. So I go into high schools and I helped make The King and I with this Chapel Hill High. We did that part, Uncle Tom's Cabin from within The King and I. And so we made these are the guards. This is Simon of Legree. I don't know if you guys remember the story of from The King and I. So Simon of Legree was the sort of big bad character. And here's some other just stuff from schools, trees, and then this is from I Am an Insect. This is a portrait mask. We've done several portrait masks over the years. We've done Don Quixote for an opera that we did. This is Henry Fabre, who was a famous entomologist. He's not that famous. And probably there's no entomologist that any of us in here could name. He liked bugs. And this is him and his daughter Lucy. And we did a whole show from their perspective, but then we like dove deeper into the undergrowth and we made small things large. So here's a giant millipede and a snail. And the snail actually does pop out and snail along. There's literally someone doing a crazy little walk like this, holding, and then there's someone inside the shell. You can see their feet back there. Maybe 2 people, look at that. I think there's two, no, that's just one person's shoes. So someone just lumbering the shell along. Other person is doing their fun little uncomfortable walk. We make people do strange things.
How do you choreograph performances? Is it all innovation by performers, or how do you bring it all together?
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, I do my best to be the sort of big picture guy, and I'm the director, and so I'm involved in all those details. I'm involved in the choreography, I'm involved in helping the music come together, which is a band of 6 or 8 people sitting in the pit, sort of like doing all the things right with the puppets, and making sure that if a puppet goes like this and opens its big arms, that there's a whoosh, or a tinkle, 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 tinkle. You know, there's all sorts of sound effect elements that are like a Foley artist, so you have to be able to play the tune whatever it is, either, whatever you're playing, and also be able to hit something with your leg, or, take your bow and hit a cymbal, or just sort of be like on your toes. But all of that comes together with me and Jan and I, and we do now more and more hire other people to come in and sort of take other pieces. Like we have an incredible dancer who works with us now named Tommy Noonan, who danced with ADF, and we'll just stick him on choreographing something over here, and then he'll bring that back, and we'll give notes, and then we'll just sort of incorporate what other people are doing. So we try to empower the group to sort of solve problems and give them the framework, and then let them show us what is like the best way to approach that, and then we'll say, I like that, and I'd like you to do this. We try to use that yes and sort of way of speaking, so that people, we're not just those directors who are just kind of up there just like, this is crap. Again.
How big a workshop and a story room do you have to do all this work? Or should I say play?
It's not big enough, that's for sure. So we have about a 7,000 or 8,000 square foot gymnasium community center in the center of Saxapahaw. You guys all been to Saxapahaw before, anybody? Nice little town, that's my hometown, or that's where I live for the past 20 years. But the community center is right on the river, where we got our start, the Hall River. And the building is full of, so every wall, like these walls, giant puppet, giant puppet, giant puppet, giant puppet, bunch of shelves with masks and masks and masks, and giant puppet, a bunch of crazy other stuff, and then just like the whole room is just packed. So the walls are shrinking in around us as we speak, and we have to keep sort of shoving things further and further away. Sometimes we'll hold auctions where we sort of let go of some of the old puppets to make room for the new. But we are running into a place where we're just at the edge of where we're going to be over capacity in our space. Something we have to address at some point. Right now there's no real answer except to keep going.
Can you build on the same property?
Can I? I mean, I don't have that kind of money. I mean, that might be possible, but there's no financial support for that at this moment. But anyway, I think it's time for a little quick break, and then we'll come back and I'll show you guys some more. Not all of it, no. I just had flip flops on, and I just took them off. So it's easier.
Several of us here over there. That's Mary.
Oh, we're breaking line.
Hi, Rhoda, how are you? Well, this is a good one. I know. I can't do the lucky listener because that's the night of the James Taylor concert or something. So I know I can't do that one. I'm doing the tutoring one. And I said I'd have the festival or the thing on Friday night, but nobody called me yet, so I assume they have enough help. No, I can do that one on Friday, but they haven't called me, so I assume they have enough help. Because the teachers are saying they got a whole lot of help now, so I thought, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
I thought I could just see what, because they're, our class
But it's not gonna be, it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a lot of sex children.
Yeah, well, student that I tutor, we had a breakfast, so I was able to meet the parents then, and the mom worked, so I know that she probably won't be bringing him anyway. But I was gonna just do it, because I figured if they needed somebody to do the hot dogs or whatever, because I can imagine how many hot dogs they're gonna get to eat, you know, that's pretty good. You know, that's probably, they're gonna be long. So I thought, well, I could have me get it, but they don't, so I assumed they don't need it, so. Yeah. It's going along, but soon it's ending because now they're going to start testing. You know, from this Friday, they're starting to test it. Yep, that's what we got notified. So, you know.
I love that place. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's just a change of weather, you know. Oh, yeah, it's terrible right now. They claim it's the worst it's been in years because everything came out now all of a sudden because there wasn't hardly any spring, so to speak. So it wasn't a gradual thing. Oh, it is. The azaleas and everything are coming out now. They're so pretty. So I'm going to get a drink before we start.
I've heard a few artists, not very many, but I never can imagine how they could have a whole life and support
Oh yeah, that was us. Yeah. We are not actually doing it here this year. I mean, it works fine. We found that the model of the Carolina Theater we can't break down. So the difference is that they do it in the art, like they just give us such a shift to like making so much after all the work in the show. It's not too far to go check. I know, that is the problem, and it's not very accessible, you know, for folks. For the season. We have gotten some more padding to pass out, like oh, we're still
Here we go.
Yeah. Just keep an eye. Like you can follow Elon Athletics on Facebook. Go to the website, look every so often.
That'd be really good.
Yeah, I hope I can go too. I think it's a good idea.
All right, I'll get this back to you.
I think he needs to paint the ram blue.
I know.
I moved to go there from the other one.
You're gonna have to come out of your sweater.
I guess she wants to, yeah, it's time to start. We're not gonna ring the bell thing. No, it's okay. I think we got it now. Now we have their attention. Yeah, it's okay. Well, welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. I thought I would just start off this second session with giving you a chance to see this next little video is about 10 minutes. It has a number of clips from live performance from our shows. So it just gives you a little bit of a chance to see the scale and sort of what's going on, and other than just my voice explaining it. And so I'll just let you watch with Paperhands, which was something that was put together by just folks who love our group. They're like, they're just fans who put this together without us asking them to or anything. And it's kind of a nice little tribute. Is that coming through the speakers? Puppetry is everything. It's just a reflection of the world.
Sound?
It reflects our humanity back to us in a way that is either stirring or thought-provoking. Paperhand is basically a puppet theater troupe that uses giant puppets and masks. A lot of things people would consider puppets. Still walkers, shadow puppets, pieces of paper, really large puppets that take 60 people to move. The school of puppetry that we come from was bread and puppet. That was hard. For them, masks, any kind of thing made with paper is all puppetry. That's me on this tall
hands
one.
are so expressive. They have a lot of gestures. We just had this image of like a big hand made of paper mache coming out of the clouds and intervening into people's everyday lives.
Some fancy robots.
I got into puppetry because of the excitement that got generated in me when I got exposed to the idea of using inanimate objects and masks and things to tell stories. And then there's the dance and theater elements that go into the performance of puppetry. And then there's the music that supports it all and breathes life into it. This black paper is going to be the puppet, and we cut it out with knives on this mat. It has a similar quality of staring into a fire or at a TV screen where there's this glowing thing that sort of draws your eye in. You just completely let go of everything. You get swept into another world. You can go into realms of the fantastical with like large creatures and beasts and things that are way outsized. Like a spider with 10 puppeteers, a huge thing that takes up all 40 feet in diameter. We sometimes push the limit with some of the largest puppets that we have as to what can be physically carried by any, human. Holding up a 20-foot tall puppet is a real trick. It usually takes at least a couple people to lift one up that's that large. You're trying to project your center of balance way up above your head. With the giant puppets, it's just moving to stage right and moving to stage left, and you're just sort of hoping that by how you're moving it in a general way and then how you've painted it, that it's expressing what you want it to express. When I do each movement, I just want every ounce of my being to have only that intention that gives life to that object. I'm a naturally shy person, but doing puppetry for me is like a way of expressing my inner ham. But putting a piece of cardboard on my head and saying like, I am this fox. I basically will focus my attention here or here or wherever I'm in. This is me. And so it's about that thing and those actions. And it's really a joy to say, like, I am that thing. Because how often in your regular life do you say, like, I'm a dragon. I'm a fierce dragon and I'm attacking the night or whatever. Or I'm a goddess and I'm spinning around and spreading love on the world. I mean, this is what you're doing. You're putting yourself into that character. We heard this story about this family that had gone to see the show and they were trying to bring Grandma along and Grandma didn't want to go. And And when she saw that piece, she was so wrapped into it, she was so engaged. Later on, when they got home, she brought out all these old family albums and started showing everybody pictures of people had never seen before. Apparently, she used to watch TV all the time, and then she stopped really being interested in watching TV and wanted to like get out into the world more. And it's kind of one of those like, that's what you sort of hope that some art piece that you would create would do for somebody in an ideal world.
Wow.
I just think there's a way that people are given an allowance to connect in a different way, in a deeper way. People allow themselves to suspend their disbelief and really empathize with the puppet.
Ultimately, our lives are changed and created by the stories that we're telling ourselves in our heads all the time about like, this is who I am, this is me, this is my life story. This is not an animatronic lifelike thing, this is a piece of cardboard. And the audience is looking at it and they're going, that's just a piece of cardboard. And then suddenly something switches in their head and they see the life in that cardboard. It's that synapse that allows for there to be mysterious things in the world.
Puppetry is very viscerally exciting. The fact that you have all of this art coming together into a synergistic creative explosion. That's actually not really true. Performs annually in Saxon Hall. We actually rehearse and build in Saxon Hall, and we go and perform in Chapel Hill Forest Theater. And anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks for indulging that. Well, it just sort of gives you a little bit of more of an idea of what they look like on the stage where we're performing and when we're performing. But we really try to do as many different types of puppetry. We're drawn to them all. I mean, the still walkers there at ESOL, they were supposed to be like lace wings or something. It was a bug show we did, all about insects, and like I was talking about before. And I was up on the 6 foot stilts, which 6 foot, so 6 foot to your foot. So right around in here, and that is getting pretty high. That means your head is about 12-ish feet, so you don't want your head contacting anything on the ground from 12 feet. So I'm pretty good at it. I have fallen once on stage. Technically I fell twice, but it was the same moment. I fell because I tripped over something on the stage, and I did the big plummet down, and luckily there's just sand that I landed in, so it wasn't a big deal. I wasn't really hurt, I didn't break anything. But then a bunch of people rushed on stage to lift me back up. And when they did, they got me back up. Meanwhile, the audience was like, freaking out. And so what happened was they lifted me back up, and then they didn't get away from from me. They just stayed right next to him. So I was like, oh, and I fell a second time. And the audience was just completely losing it at this point. And so then I was like, stand me up again and then get away. So they did that. And I took my little broken wing, because my wing broke, and I just raised both my arms in the air. And that was one of the biggest cheers that we ever got. Because the audience was like, oh my God. It was like the human drama. It was just more than people could take. It was quite a moment, and luckily I didn't walk away with any permanent damage, at least not that I know of. Yes, ma'am.
How are the stilts attached securely? I used to walk on stilts, and that's when you had to stick up behind your arm and you were holding on the pole.
Oh, right, so these ones are, they're designed to, there's a pad or like a place where it comes up to your knee, just below your kneecap,
Okay.
and then it ties around the back of your calf, and then your foot is on a pedestal,
Okay.
and then that's all bolted securely to a long piece of Douglas fir, so it doesn't have any knots in it. You don't want to use pine because it's too soft and it has a knot, you know, it's going down. So that's how we tie them on like that. It's pretty straightforward, and it is one of those things where it's like if you learn how to ride a bike, it's a similar feeling. Once you get the feeling of how to stand on there, you don't feel in danger of falling, like sort of like you don't feel in danger of falling off of a bike. Unless you do something a little bit crazy, like on a mountain bike on a trail, trying to hop over rocks and do crazy things. So you can still fall, but it's not very likely.
How do you get up on them?
We sit on top of either a car or a truck, or sometimes we have step ladders with a board going between, and so we tie them on up there, and then you stand up and you put your, so the trickiest thing is not just wearing them, but you have to wear them with some crazy costume
Yes.
on top of that, so that's always fun. Yes, ma'am?
How are you all financed?
Well, I call it, our company's an LLC, it's not a nonprofit, so I call it a sweat of the brow company. I basically work for money, and like I go and do gigs, I go to schools, I go do residencies, I go do performances, whatever it is. And then occasionally we get little boosts, like we're getting ready to do our 19th annual summer show, these shows that I've been showing you. We're almost at 20, and we're not giving up yet, and I don't even think we'll give up at 20. I mean, there's no plan B, so it's just sort of this until the end. But we ask the community for basically a grant, which is through a website called Kickstarter. Have you guys all heard of Kickstarter? It's basically called crowdsource funding, and you just ask for money, like for a specific thing. And for us, the specific thing, we've gotten the funding for the past 6 years through Kickstarter to have what we call the seed money to create the new show, whatever it is. Because that money is just not laying around in some coffers waiting to be spent. We just sort of like do a gig and we have some money for a little while, and then I mean, there's never been like a real business plan. It's all just been like our passion and our sort of excitement for the work, and then we're just doing this thing and paying our taxes, which makes it hard sometimes because we end up with, you feel like you just got ahead as a self-employed person, and nope, you're back to. So we get our funding through the community, mostly, but work, and then we do get these grants. And we also have one other way that I think the way that we're really trying to promote is our, it's called Patreon. And Patreon is a very simple structure of becoming a patron of the arts, and you can choose an organization that you like or love or support what they do, and you can give $1 a month or $3 a month or $5 a month, and it just comes out automatically. And it's like being a sustainer for WUNC. So it's the same thing. We also have sustainers. We've got about 150 people right now who are doing it. But we're trying to grow that number so that we have a bit of a cushion so that we're not bouncing on zero, I call it. Which just means, we're artists who are out of money for now. Like, what do you do? I don't know. So if you're interested in that, I do have these cards, and all of that information is on our website if anybody wants to. I didn't come here specifically to get your alls, I just came here to share my work with you, but if you're interested in that, that is something that's available. Yeah, we get our funding basically like that, through all the ways I've been showing in commissions, parades, residencies, performances.
Do you sell tickets to your performances?
Yeah, so the tickets to the big shows, the big shows at the Forest Theater are $15.
How do you get them?
What?
How do you get them?
Oh, well, they're only available at the door, unfortunately. Yeah, because the only reason that is because it's a stone amphitheater, and there's no numbered seating. So you can imagine if we pre-sold tickets, it would be sort of like showing up and then, that's your rock right over there. I think, but someone's already sitting in it. So we have to just do it by general admission.
We saw you at Carolina Theater.
Yeah, Carolina Theater, we just stopped recently going there because of, we couldn't break even with what the theater charged. Sort of a problem, but other places like the Forest Theater and the Museum of Art, who treat us very generously, they give us, there's just not a huge overhead. I don't know, for some reason the overhead at the Carolina Theater was just astronomical, so.
But we can go to your website and find out when the performances are and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we have a really good calendar. Hopefully it's easy to use. Has all our dates coming up. It should also tell you how to get notifications if you'd like that, either through Facebook or through just email alerts that we send out. We just send out things periodically, letting people know what we're doing and what we're up to, and when to see us next. That's the best way. We're not really printing brochures and things like that at this point because so much things have gone digital. I like a good piece of paper myself, but yeah.
Have you ever done Hollywood things, things for Hollywood?
No, we've gotten a couple of calls from, Disney sort of scouters and stuff like that. But have you guys ever seen Across the Universe? That was a movie that came out about 5 years ago. Had a bunch of puppets in it, and it was a remaking of the songs of the Beatles. Anyway, it was a pretty interesting film, but Julie Taymor, who is the one who produced Lion King on Broadway, have you guys, anyone heard of the Lion King version of Broadway? On Broadway? So that's like using a lot of puppets and very similar stuff. So she sort of in some ways helped put puppetry onto a wider sort of scope for people to recognize that it's an art form that's worth taking seriously. And so I do see puppets in film a lot more these days. It's just out there. I think there's puppets at the Super Bowl now. There's puppets at the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. So we're just waiting for the right call to come in, I guess. In the meantime, we're keeping ourselves busy and just keep pouring our passion into it. And I don't really, ultimately, I'm just like, whatever happens, happens. But I'm just going to keep being true and authentic to what I want to do. So one of the ways that's manifesting in a way that I'm excited about is that we're getting to travel more. So people are calling us from England and Ireland, and we just actually got back a month ago from a month-long trip in England, building puppets for a company, taking it to a big conference in downtown London, and then basically just did the puppets while we were there, and then left them there and said bye-bye, and they paid us really well. And we got back on our merry way, and I'm just really happy about that. Also got to spend a month in the Virgin Islands 2 years ago now, and then we returned again with another commission from the Virgin Islands Department of Education, and that just led to a bunch of building of puppets with teenagers for the Carnival celebrations that they do every year, which was really cool. Got to just live on the island with my wife and daughter for a month, and I actually got to take my wife and daughter to England also. So getting to travel and getting paid for that, I'm all about it. And I'm like, yes, because I'm not done seeing the world. I don't know about you guys. There's a lot to see. Yeah, so that's one of the new avenues that's opening up. There's the people becoming our patron and sort of helping support us so we can just keep working and not have to like do the sort of hustle that it takes to be a self-employed artist. I don't mind hustling, but I'm doing it, and I work hard. I mean, I have another gig I'm going to tonight. I'm going to a thing, and I just did a thing yesterday, and just like one thing after another, and you have to kind of just string it together to make it work. But I mean, good thing that I love the work, and I love the reaction that it gets from people, so I'm able to enjoy that the whole way through. Yes, sir.
Could you tell us about the show this summer?
I can give you maybe a little teaser. So what Jan and I have been thinking about and drawing and sort of scheming on has been around the themes of fire and fire as it relates to different mythologies of how fire has been brought to the people. So there's lots of different stories, trickster, creator stories from different cultures that everything from Prometheus stealing fire from the gods to grandmother spider and Anansi stealing fire and bringing stories also to the people. So they're related, and also fire is related to technology and humans' interaction with technology and sort of our harnessing of that. Fire, and also, but it's about the fire of our passion and the fire of, so we're sort of looking at fire from different directions through story and through what it means as an element within our own body, within our own heart, like the fire burning in our hearts to like express in the world. So we're going to do some things with the senses and create some, that's sort of, I don't know if that's an excellent elevator pitch, but we're going to have some trolls and giants also. We've got these troll and giant stories we've been reading from like a lot of the Nordic, Scandinavian countries, so we're going to do some troll tales, but again with our own sort of spin, not the sort of like, dumb troll that's mean and bad, but like more like the sort of trolls that are like nature, rock, hillside kind of manifestations of natural, the natural world, and how they come into interesting dynamics with humans' sort of encroachment. There's going to be an ice giant. Drop the mic. Here's a giant spider that we made a number of years ago. That creeps some people out. Let me tell you. When it started to walk towards the audience as if it was going to go into the audience, you could feel their like everything tightening.
What about the wolf? What did you use that?
The wolf? The wolf is from several years ago. So we actually made a show that is in the Moorhead. It's a movie that plays on the Moorhead Planetarium dome. And it's in there every year. It's called The Longest Night, every winter for the past 5 or 6 years. And this is one of the characters in it. Now it's something that usually takes 2 people, so because it's got this whole body, someone has to be the wolf butt. But I'm not going to ask any of you to jump in this wolf butt right now. But I mean, I can kind of do it on my own. Yeah, that took a while. I'll show you. Stop talking for a minute and show you guys the puppets. This one's pretty fun. Had a lot of use out of this guy over the years. Not used to wearing a microphone, so forgive the ruffle, ruffle, duffle sound. I'm just sorry for nothing. I got me earlier too. It's
How did you see out of that?
Which one
There
now?
are slits in the,
In the vulture, there's slits in the fabric, yeah. But all the masks have different different eye holes. This is Darwin, and it almost kind of looks like him. You know, it's those old pictures of that guy sitting on the thing with the bushy eyebrows. You guys have seen him. It almost kind of made it, but this one has eye holes. You can see out the mouth a little bit. You can see out the nose. You can see out here and here. Anywhere where there's a spot that naturally kind of makes it disappear into the face. Any dark spot, I sometimes will go for one here in the dark of the nose. So you just have to be, creative, a little bit innovative to make sure that you have a way to see within reason. You can never see as well as when you don't have a mask on your head. There's just, and believe me, I've heard every single complaint possible. I can't see. It's so hot. Really? I'm just like, the complaint department is right down the hall, out the door, and then you're on your own. Anyway, so Darwin just, we had a show we did about evolution, and we had a bunch of monkeys who just kept coming along and flummoxing Darwin the whole time, jumping on his back and whatever, and just we just had a little fun with evolution. I'm not going to put this flamingo on, but this is a new one that I quite like. But someone sticks their arm up inside of here, and it's very much like the vulture, except you end up with this flamingo that has quite a bit of flamboyant.
yeah.
And then this little part just goes over your body. And if you have a bunch of them together all doing that thing that flamingos do, where they, how they all move together? And it's amazing. And I just couldn't help myself. We were making a show about birds this past summer, and I was just so taken by how elegant and interesting that they all are as a group walking together. I'll try and get through a little bit more of these. This is a really old spider, but we're thinking of revisiting this again this summer. This idea of a grandmother spider. And it's just, it'll be a totally new one. There's a giant butterfly that's now hanging in the Kids Zoo Museum in Chapel Hill.
Oh, nice.
We tend to look a lot at the idea of overpopulation. So this piece was called The Boat That We're In. And obviously the boat's getting a little full. And so eventually what happens is like the rats on the ship start jumping ship and leaving in their own little lifeboats. And what happened from there, I can't even tell you. Box heads. It was just waiting to happen. These are more stilt walking costumes. Things you can do with cardboard. I'm still amazed. This dragon was made all of cardboard. And we put the individual panels of the body onto, we figured out a way to mount it to PVC, so you can go like this, and you get a really great undulation in the, and you can, so this is Tiamat, which is like from the creation myths of Mesopotamia. There's that guy right there, except he now has eyes in his, he got some eyes put into his face. You can see, like, sometimes, like, I think he's gotten a little bit, been in too many boxes with other masks on top, and so his ear is kind of started to collapse in a little bit. But, you know, this guy, he's cute. Definitely. Anyway, you get the idea. Back and forth. Yes?
Glasses, when you talk about being able to see through there, and so many people do wear glasses.
Oh yeah, so some people, either they'll switch to contacts, or they'll figure out a way to rig their own masks so that it isn't bothering their glasses. It does work though. Sometimes they have to get a strap so it doesn't come off when they take the mask off. These are our grand people, we call them. Grand people. We made a whole show with stories that we collected from our own cast of people's grandparents and the family stories that they had in their own family. And that was really powerful, I have to say. Having the personal stories, that when we picked the ones that we thought spoke most universally to the human condition, and it really elicited a lot of emotional response from the audience, because everyone had a family story, or a grandparent, or was a grandparent, or something along that family story generational line. And we would illustrate what was happening inside of the grandperson's mind with cardboard flats all sort of behind them. So as they would think thoughts and their narration would be coming from the pit, their thoughts would be illustrated with painted flats. It was genius. Wait, did I just say that out loud? There's our lion. I made this lion in a fever pitch after a dear friend who was 35 passed away from a rare heart disease that just is a virus that floats around. And he was the first sort of contemporary that I had ever lost, dear friend. And it was so out of the nowhere and people didn't know for months and months and months what had happened, because it's such a rare virus form. So I made this lion because he was very lion-hearted and a big heart, and was a really incredible inspiration. And so I made that. Kids love this one. They come up to it and they're not afraid of it. It's really cool to create that connection. We made a library piece where this little girl stumbles into this mystical library that's like a labyrinth of cardboard, and she meets this librarian goat. And this goat librarian, he's pretty funny. He walks around like reading books, and then occasionally when no one's looking, he'll tear a page out. He can't get past his own nature as a goat. He's like eats stuff. So then they get sort of berated by this flood of information that's sort of drowning the library. It's flooding the library, and the sea is getting higher and higher. That's the sea here in front. And we represented it with newspapers. And so they make a boat, and the boat and the goat are afloat on a sea of information. And this is just one of the times that she opens a book, and these stilt creatures come out and do a dance. And different things happened each time. It's just around the studio. There's the goat finished. We lost this at a parade in Raleigh. We took it to, I don't suggest puppets at like hockey games. It was not a good match because people were drunk. Someone stole our mask. I was really, wow. It was really kind of disappointing.
Keep an eye out.
Thank you. If anyone sees a goat, these big flat potato heads were turned into trees. They were first islands, and they stood up, and then they turned into these kind of tree-like shapes. This is a cyclops. Kind of a gnarly creature. That scared some kids. This was like a giant gyre that we created. You guys know what the gyre is? So this is the gyre is the big island of trash in the middle of the Pacific. So we did the show called Islands Unknown, where this girl started out in the library, and then she ended up going to these different islands, almost like an Odyssey type adventure. And one of the islands after a big storm is this island of trash, and she's swirling in the middle of it, and then Poseidon himself rises up out of the ocean in the middle, and we were like, what would it look like if Poseidon rose from the sea right now, today, in this middle of this trash, swirling trash pile? Anyway, he's a little bit miffed, as you can see by his hurricane eyes. Maybe a little bit sad too. There's a lot in his expression, but his beard is kind of a tangled mix of plastic and old hammocks and stuff. But that's Poseidon, and then his hands come out, and then he's there with the little girl talking with her, and he bends down to her, and then out of his eyes come these streams of oil slicks. Like he's crying he's basically crying these tears of oil. I know, it's pretty harsh, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. It was the year that the Exxon spill happened that we did this story, and that felt like such a big earth trauma in a way, that spill, that we never really have, and it was hard to know how to process the information coming out of the radio. Those like bad things, 1 million gallons, 2 million, who even knows? The numbers were so high at a certain point, it didn't make any sense. So we showed this, and I was really amazed. It provided people this space to collectively feel some of these hurts that happen. And I felt it was really powerful because people were able to cry or feel about it in some way, because we become so desensitized, and I think that there's a tendency towards disassociation, towards numbing that happens in our society, towards going to sleep rather than being engaged. I'm just saying, maybe it's a judgment, but I'm just saying I see that manifested, and one of the things reasons our work is an intervention is it's supposed to be a little bit of like a gentle wake-up call to re-engage with life and not just like disassociate and be like, well, I'm just gonna not pay attention, because the problems don't go away. So we tried to rebuild the earth, and we built a Buckminster Fuller. Any Buckminster Fuller fans in here? We built his amazing map of the world, which is built of triangles. The triangles snap together with magnets, believe it or not, into this tetrahedron, some kind of hedron. I think it was 21-sided. And then on the very last piece, it snapped together, and that was the connector for the light to come on. And the lights went out, and the globe lit up, and the audience just went wild. And I was amazed that we pulled that off. I don't even know how to this day. But anyway, look it up, Buckminster Fuller's map. I mean, it unfolds into a weird shaped triangular map. It is supposedly the most accurate map of the actual size of the continents that is known. People believe today, and we recreated it to scale. Anyway, there's us making goop. Let me see if I can get through some of these before we end. These are some of the shadow puppets. Take a quick gander at some of the things that we've cut with paper, and then we project them. We use overhead projectors, which are a dying breed, but we still seek them out. And we cut really intricate little patterns. Rock'em sock'em. Just so many things. And there's my little girl was born. Go get my baby. I know, my greatest creation, exactly. And then look at us making babies, crybabies. She's now 6.
Is she intrigued by these?
She loves them, and she spends all kinds of time in the studio. She's really open and engaged, not scared of them. Yeah, just the other day I was having an interview with someone in the studio, and she ran off and came back with these big foamy bird feet on and was walking around. And then she put on a mask and was like dancing around. And I secretly was like really proud, but I mean, I was just trying to have this interview with this person. I was like, hey, this is my daughter, so hold on. But she's great, and she's getting, having a great childhood, you know, climbing fruit trees, and being around people who are just making an effort to make the world a better place. I think that's the best I can do. Just trying to just show you guys a little bit more, and this is just stuff. We just make things all the time. We can't stop.
Do you ever need free volunteer labor?
Yes. So every Saturday, starting May 19th, every Saturday in the summer, all the way through the very end of July, we have these community work days. People come out and take the heads and things that we've been creating and whatever we've been creating and help paper mache or help put on a base layer, any number of things that need to be done. So we open the studio up to the public, and you know, somewhere between 10 and 50 people will come on a Saturday. And the cool thing is you can hang around until the evening. If you come later in the day especially, and there's music on the hill. There's a band that plays every Saturday saxophone. And then you can have a meal at any of the little establishments that have cropped up. Anyway, this is a little bit more of our most recent, and I wanted to show you one more thing of like, someone mentioned, we were at the Winston-Salem Symphony the other day. Did anyone catch that? No. Someone in the last group came to the symphony and said, hey, I saw these puppets over there, and I was like, oh, that was us. That was me. That is not it. There we go. So these turtles were one of the things that featured in that, and these are some of our new turtles that we just made this past summer, and I quite love turtles, so I was really excited to make these. It got going when I made a giant green sea turtle for the island of St. Thomas, and it was like the most incredible green sea turtle puppet you will ever see. I'm just saying. And then I was like, I'm just making more turtles. So we made this one, these two, and we also made a giant, even bigger, much bigger one that we did the shadow puppets inside the turtle this year. So all the puppeteers rushed under there, set up a thing, and then we used the big shell to create the shadow puppet piece at the end. It was awesome. And we just keep trying to make things bigger, better, more dynamic, more interesting, and basically be more effective towards, you know, truly trying to shift the narrative that's going that our world is being destroyed. I'm trying to, you know, embrace another narrative, create a new story where our world can be, I don't know, I try to have hope. I hope you guys do too.
Where did you find these fabulous fabrics? Did you dye them or?
We painted the turtles were, I painted those, yeah, so it was a grayish fabric, and I painted black and white to make those, and then we used the stencil to make these sort of scaly patterns. So we're just outside with a spray paint can doing little gradations and let me show you one. We use this giant. This is one of our most recent giant puppets that I love. He's kind of like a sky creature, or Father Sky kind of guy, and
Did you paint that too?
Yeah, and I painted the clouds sort of swirling, and there's birds and wind kind of moving across. It's just a big representation of the sky. So we had the sea below, and the earth, and the sky, and then this is there's a big face right here too, this big Mother Earth kind of face with trees growing out. Anyway, we're doing our best and working really hard, and if you guys are interested at all, I do have these cards if anyone's interested in either just coming to the Saturdays or knowing more about us or sharing this with a friend, or if you're interested in becoming a patron, there is a very simple way to go onto a website called Patreon through our website, and you can literally just say, I want to give $1 a month to this organization, or $3 or $5. And again, I mean, it makes it so that we're able to just continue focusing on this work and not have to, like, you know, basically wear ourselves down to a nub trying to survive in other ways. But it's really just an option that I'm throwing out there into the world, and do what you will. But I really appreciate you having me here today, and I hope you guys enjoyed